Let me ask you something simple but uncomfortable. If someone gave you $1 million today, would you actually know what to do with it? Managing money isn't about luck or IQ. It's about clarity, discipline, and patience, lots of it. The difference between those who build wealth and those who struggle isn't income, it's decisions. The wealthiest 1% don't have more hours in a day. They just think differently about the hours and dollars they do have. Most people don't realize how often their financial decisions are shaped by emotions rather than logic. The result is a life filled with purchases that don't deliver long-term value, just short-term gratification. If you want to build real wealth, not just in dollars but in options and stability, you have to fundamentally rethink how you spend your money. It's not about deprivation, it's about intention. That's where the difference begins. The people who manage money best don't buy to impress, they buy to empower. They don't spend to react to a feeling, they spend to solve a problem or create a return. That means being able to pause between the desire and the decision. And in that pause, they ask, will this move me closer to the future I want, or is it just a momentary distraction? It sounds simple, but in practice, it's one of the hardest shifts to make. We're surrounded by platforms and marketing engines designed to hijack our attention, trigger impulse, and make us feel like spending is the answer to boredom, insecurity, or even ambition. That emotional pull is strong, but the people who achieve financial freedom are the ones who train themselves to be immune to it. Not by force, but by clarity. They build systems that guide their decisions. They track spending, not because they're obsessed with every cent, but because they want feedback. They want to know what's working. They want to know what's leaking. They want to design a plan that reflects their values and future, not their moods or whims. And once that system is in place, it becomes easier to say no, not because of guilt, but because they already have a better yes. Being intentional means setting clear goals, not just vague ones like save more or spend less, but specific goals with timelines and measurements. It could be saving for a down payment, investing in a new skill, or building a cushion for freedom and flexibility. Once that clarity is in place, money starts to serve the person, not the other way around. One of the most important things to understand is that every dollar has a purpose. If you don't assign that purpose, someone else will. Whether it's an ad, a trend, or peer pressure, unassigned money is easy to manipulate. But when your dollars are given direction, when they are budgeted with thought, aligned with values, and tracked with discipline, they begin to work for you. Emotional spending tends to solve temporary feelings with permanent costs. It's like installing expensive wallpaper in a room you never sit in. It looks good for a moment, but it doesn't contribute to anything lasting. Intentional spending is the opposite. It often doesn't feel exciting in the moment, but over time it produces compound value. Whether it's investing in better tools, more education, or simple savings, the return keeps showing up long after the purchase. It's also important to separate self-worth from spending. Some people buy to feel seen, to feel successful, or to keep up appearances. But true success is invisible for a long time. It's the account you don't see, the investments that haven't matured yet, the debt that's been paid down quietly. The people who spend intentionally aren't chasing validation. They're building stability, and that takes patience. Technology helps. Today, there are tools that can automate budgets, flag unusual spending, or allocate investments. But technology alone isn't the solution. It's a supplement. The mindset still has to come first. You have to decide consciously that your financial life is not something to drift through. It's something to design. There's freedom in this mindset. Real freedom, not the illusion of freedom that comes from swiping a card, but the kind of freedom that lets you walk away from a bad job, take a risk on a new idea, or support a family member in need. That freedom doesn't come from reacting emotionally to your finances. It comes from mastering them, so the next time you're about to spend, whether it's $5 or $5, zero, 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 pause. Ask what problem you're solving. Ask whether it's worth more than the alternative. Ask whether it's adding to your future or just distracting you from it. The world will keep trying to convince you that what you buy defines you, but the truth is what you keep and how you manage it shapes the life you get to live. Compounding is not just a financial principle, it's a life principle. The earlier you understand it, not just conceptually, but behaviorally, the more leverage you gain over time. It's one of the few forces in the world where the return is disproportionate to the effort, and it rewards consistency over brilliance. But it only works if you start early, stay disciplined, and resist the urge to interrupt its process. Most people think of compounding as something tied strictly to investing. Put money into an account, let it grow, and watch the interest accumulate. But the truth is, compounding applies to everything, from relationships and learning to habits and business decisions. The earlier you begin applying it, the more exponential your results become, even if you start small. The real power of compounding is time, not speed, not size, just time. It doesn't care whether you're a millionaire or someone with only a few dollars to spare. What it cares about is whether you let it do its job without constant interference. The moment you pull out an investment, or abandon a good habit, or stop nurturing a valuable connection, you reset the curve. You interrupt the growth. That's why understanding it is only half the battle. Once you understand it, the next step is to obsess over it. That doesn't mean checking your investment portfolio every day. It means building a life where compounding is working in the background across multiple areas: money, knowledge, health, relationships. While you stay focused on the long game, take learning, for example. Reading one book won't change your life, but reading consistently year after year will shape your world. You sharpen your judgment and allow you to make decisions others can't. 1 hour of reading a day isn't just an hour, it's a deposit. A small one, but the dividends show up later in how you lead, what you build, and how you respond when things get tough. The same is true for financial habits. Saving $10 a day doesn't sound like much. But over 20 years, with compound returns, that money turns into a meaningful sum, not just because of the deposits, but because of the uninterrupted growth. The mistake people make is assuming they need a huge amount of capital to start. You don't. You need consistency. The best time to start was yesterday. The second best time is right now. Compounding also punishes impatience. The biggest returns don't come in the first year or even the first 5. They come in year 10, year 15, year 20. But most people never get there. They get distracted. They chase shiny objects. They switch strategies. And so they never give the process enough time to reveal its full power. That's where obsession helps. When you truly grasp what's possible with compounding, you don't get tempted by shortcuts. You don't panic during a dip. You understand that volatility is noise and time is the real filter. You hold the course not because you're blindly optimistic, but because you're mathematically grounded. It's also worth remembering that compounding applies to your mistakes. Bad habits, ignored problems, poor decisions, they compound too. Just like good investments grow over time, so do unattended consequences. That's why intentionality matters. Every decision is a seed. You choose what you want to grow. To build a life powered by compounding, you have to start thinking in decades. Not days, not even years. Decades. The longer your horizon, the better your judgment becomes. You stop asking, what feels good now, and start asking, what pays off later. That shift is rare, but it's transformational. You'll notice that people who master this principle aren't usually the loudest. They're not chasing headlines, they're quietly building, they're learning every day, saving steadily, investing early, practicing patience. And one day it looks like they became overnight successes. But it wasn't overnight. It was compounding, unseen and uninterrupted. So whether you're making a financial decision, building a skill, or forming a new habit, ask yourself, am I giving this the time to compound? Am I resisting the urge to start over too often? Am I investing in things that will pay me back repeatedly, not just once? The answers to those questions will determine far more about your future than any windfall or lucky break. Because the truth is, most fortunes, financial or otherwise, aren't built in a flash. They're built in silence over time with patience, persistence, and the quiet magic of compounding doing its work behind the scenes. Imagine if every dollar you owned had a job, not a symbolic one, but a clear, measurable assignment, something it was supposed to produce, protect, or improve. That's the mindset that separates those who drift financially from those who build lasting wealth. Money doesn't manage itself. It follows direction. The people who thrive financially are the ones who treat every dollar like an employee and manage their money like a performance organization. When you earn a dollar, it comes with potential. But most people spend it as if it has no role beyond satisfying a short-term desire. That's like hiring a new worker and giving them nothing to do. That dollar could have gone to reduce future stress. It could have earned more money. It could have bought time, security, leverage, but instead it disappears, doing nothing for the person who worked hard to earn it. This isn't about frugality. It's about productivity. The people who manage money well are constantly thinking in terms of return. Not just financial return, also time, health, freedom, flexibility. Every dollar is evaluated through the lens of contribution. What does this purchase create? What future does it build? What risk does it reduce? If you think about money as labor, your perspective shifts. Let's say you have $1,000, that's 1,000 tiny workers. Are you putting them to work in ways that benefit you next year, in 5 years? Or are they being wasted on tasks that are done in a day and forgotten in a week? When you apply this lens, you start to recognize waste for what it really is, inefficiency. People who thrive financially are not controlled by their budget, they control it. They allocate funds like a CEO assigns talent. Some dollars go into operations, basic needs, responsibilities, overhead. Others go into R&D, learning, tools, systems. A portion goes to future growth, investments, savings, long-term bets. And some are used for morale experiences, generosity, moments of joy. The key is that each dollar has a job and none are left idle. Idle money is just as dangerous as wasted money. It loses value quietly through inflation or missed opportunities. Just like a lazy employee drains a team's momentum, unassigned dollars drag down your financial progress. That's why automation, planning, and regular check-ins are essential. When your money is working without needing constant supervision, it becomes a multiplier, not a burden. There's also discipline in firing bad employees. If a dollar is constantly being spent in ways that bring zero return, like subscriptions you don't use, or items that create more clutter than value, it's time to make a cut. Reassign those resources to areas where they can contribute. You wouldn't keep someone on your team who does nothing. Your money shouldn't be an exception. Long-term wealth doesn't come from big wins. It comes from optimized systems. It comes from directing money toward things that continue to work after you've stepped away. Passive income isn't magic, it's the outcome of assigning your dollars wisely, over time, and letting those investments generate results without your daily input. This mindset also removes the emotional fog from spending. When you treat a dollar like a worker, you ask questions before deploying it. Will this strengthen my future? Will it earn more or reduce cost? Will it buy time or flexibility? Or is it just making me feel better in this moment without any lasting benefit? That clarity protects you from the kind of decisions that sabotage financial freedom. It's not always about investing in stocks or starting a company. Sometimes putting $1 toward a better tool, a useful book, a course, or even getting enough rest has a return you can't calculate instantly, but it still works for you. What matters is intentionality. Unintentional money rarely produces intentional outcomes. Over time, this approach builds momentum. Your dollars stop being just currency. They become infrastructure. Each one supports the next. Each one creates capacity. And eventually you get to a place where your money is working harder than you are. That's the real goal, not just having more, but doing more with what you already have. So the next time money comes in, pause. Don't just spend, assign. Don't just react, strategize. Because when you treat every dollar like an employee, you stop being the worker and start becoming the architect of your financial future. Time is the most valuable resource we have, and yet it's the one people waste most freely. There's a tendency to believe that money is the ultimate sign of success, but the truly successful understand that time, not money, is the real asset. The difference between surviving and excelling often comes down to how time is used, protected, and multiplied. The key isn't in buying more things, it's in buying back your time. People are often caught in a cycle of working hard to earn money, only to spend that money on distractions that provide momentary relief but no long-term value. The cycle continues, and soon enough, time becomes fragmented, consumed by tasks that drain energy but don't build anything meaningful. The wealthy and productive approach it differently. They view every decision through the lens of time. Does this buy them freedom or consume their hours? When people start earning more, their first instinct is usually to upgrade their lifestyle. Better clothes, better cars, better gadgets. But what if the first upgrade was buying time? Delegating low-value tasks, automating the repetitive, streamlining the essentials, not because those tasks are beneath them, but because they understand the cost of distraction. Every minute spent on something unimportant is a minute not spent on something strategic. When you buy time, you're not being lazy, you're being efficient. You're acknowledging that your best work, your clearest thinking, most impactful decisions, and highest value actions can only happen when your time is protected. The most successful people don't try to do everything. They build systems, teams, and tools that help them focus on what only they can do. That's how scale happens, not through hustle, but through leverage. This mindset shift requires discomfort at first. It's easier to buy a new phone than to pay someone to handle your scheduling or clean your house. But the return on that second investment is far greater. It gives you hours back, mental clarity, energy, all of which are needed to build, create, and grow. Money spent on things depreciates. Money spent on time appreciates, because it allows you to reinvest in yourself. There's also a psychological benefit. When you spend money to protect your time, you're telling yourself that your time matters, that what you're doing is worth protecting, that you don't have to drown in tasks to feel productive. Real productivity is about output, not busyness. It's about being ruthless with how time is allocated so your best ideas and deepest thinking have space to emerge. Of course, not every task can be outsourced, but many of the ones that drain energy can be reduced, batched, or delegated. Think of how many hours are lost to reactive work, email, errands, logistical planning. Now imagine if just a portion of those hours were reclaimed and invested in learning something new, building something important, or simply thinking without interruption. That shift compounds over time. Time bought today produces results tomorrow. If you can reclaim even 1 hour a day by being intentional with your spending, that's over 350 hours a year. That's almost 9 full work weeks. What could you do with that? Write a book, start a business, mentor others, improve your health, solve a problem that matters. These aren't hypothetical benefits. They're real outcomes when time becomes your primary investment. The question isn't whether you're busy. Everyone's busy. The real question is whether your time is being used in a way that reflects your goals, values, and potential. If not, it might be time to reallocate, not just your money, but your priorities. Because no one gets more hours in a day, but some people live as if they do, simply because they've structured their life to protect the time that matters most. Ultimately, money is a tool. And one of its highest uses is to create time for better decisions, deeper relationships, and more focused effort. That's the return that changes lives, not the thing on the shelf, but the hour you get back. The clarity you gain, the choice you reclaim. The world will always offer you things to buy, but the smartest investment you can make is in the resource you can never get back. Spend your money in ways that give you time, because it's in those moments of quiet control, undivided attention, and deliberate action that real progress is made. And when time is your ally, not your enemy, you stop managing life and start shaping it. Most people spend their lives chasing money so they can buy more things. Bigger houses, newer gadgets, flashier cars. But few ever stop to ask if those things are actually improving their lives in meaningful ways. The truth is, things don't scale your capacity, time does, and when you begin to see money as a tool to reclaim your time, everything shifts. You stop playing defense. You start designing your days. Time is the only truly scarce resource. You can't manufacture more of it, and you can't recover it once it's gone. That's why the most effective people spend money differently, not to impress others, but to buy back hours of their life. They're not driven by consumption. They're driven by optimization. They ask, what drains my time and energy? What would allow me to focus more on what actually matters? Then they use their money to solve those questions, not fill a closet. At first, this seems counterintuitive. We're conditioned to believe that productivity means doing more ourselves, that if we're not busy every second, we're not working hard enough. But being busy and being effective are two different things. It's entirely possible to burn through 12 hours and accomplish nothing of real value. That's not progress. It's motion without direction. Imagine spending your day focused entirely on decisions and work that actually require your brain, your creativity, your leadership. No interruptions from errands, scheduling conflicts, minor tasks that could be automated or delegated. That's what buying time looks like. It's not about extravagance. It's about design. It's about asking, what is my highest point of contribution and how do I protect it? When you start earning more, the real opportunity isn't to inflate your lifestyle. It's to create leverage. Hiring someone to manage the tasks that distract you might not feel exciting the way a new purchase does, but the return on that investment is greater. It gives you hours back. It creates mental white space. It allows you to think, to plan, to build. That's the kind of wealth that compounds, not in your bank account, but in your quality of life. Time. Rich people aren't necessarily the wealthiest. They're just the most intentional. They understand that every hour spent on something low value is an hour not spent on something strategic. So they get serious about boundaries, they automate, they batch. They outsource. They aren't afraid to spend money on help. Not because they're lazy, but because they know their time is worth more elsewhere. This isn't just about productivity, it's also about health. Mental, emotional, even physical. When your schedule is constantly under pressure, your decision-making suffers, your creativity diminishes, you become reactive. But when you protect time, you protect your ability to make clear, high-leverage choices. And over time, Those choices shape your outcomes far more than any single effort. It's also about alignment. The goal isn't to cram more into the day. The goal is to spend more time on the things that matter: family, deep work, meaningful conversations, strategic thinking. If your calendar doesn't reflect your priorities, your life won't either. And most people don't realize this until it's too late, until the important things have been consistently traded for the urgent, and the people they care about have gotten their leftovers. Buying time is a skill. It requires awareness, it requires courage, and it requires letting go of the ego that says, I should do everything myself. Delegation isn't weakness, it's strength. It means you know your role, you know your worth, and you're investing in systems that allow you to show up at your best. Every dollar has opportunity cost, so does every hour. If you spend money on a status symbol, you might feel good for a moment. But if you spend it on a tool, a person, or a service that frees up your attention, that benefit lasts. It ripples into your work, your relationships, your ability to rest. It gives you margin, and that's where clarity lies. Eventually, the value of your time becomes undeniable. You see what happens when you spend your best hours on your best work. You feel the difference when you start your day with energy instead of exhaustion. And you understand in a very real way that freedom doesn't come from owning more. It comes from controlling how you spend the minutes you'll never get back. So when the next paycheck comes, pause before you buy. Ask what you really need. Is it another thing? Or is it the space to think, to breathe, to build? Use your money to buy time. Because in the end, time is the only thing that makes everything else possible. And I'll leave you with this. The real gap between rich and poor is not just money, it's mindset. Everyone has access to the same principles. The only question is, are you willing to apply them before you're forced to? You don't need millions to start thinking like the wealthy. You just need intention, and once you have that, you'll stop wondering what the 1% knows and start living it. Thank you.